दोस्तों स्क्रीन पर जो आप देख रहे हैं वो मास्टर पैसेज है जो एसएससी के थ्रू रिसीव हुआ है और इसको मैंने इस तरीके से अरेंज किया है 100 वर्ड्स का मार्क लगा के खुद से टाइप करके, ताकि आपको कोई भी दिक्कत ना आए। आप स्क्रीन पर देख रहे होंगे। दोस्तों इस क्लास में मैं आपको डिक्टेशन प्रोवाइड करूंगा। ग्रेड सी का मैटर है, 100 WPM स्पीड रहेगी, 1000 वर्ड्स की डिक्टेशन है। आपको डिक्टेशन दे रहा हूँ, अच्छे से लिखिएगा 100 WPM पर। बी रेडी फॉर इट। Sir, I am privileged to move this resolution that seeks the consent of this august House for constituting an Environment Adaptation and Migration Fund. In submitting this resolution for the consideration of this House, I have been primarily prompted by several considerations, the most dominant being that there is an inadequacy of understanding of what mitigation and adaptation in terms of the burden that they cast on our society is going to really entail, and that the existing structural mechanism which we have is clearly inadequate to meet this huge burden. Therefore, I think there is the need for innovative approach which is based on benchmarking with best international practice, and India must brace itself to deal with these debilitating consequences of global warming and climate change. Sir, climate change, as we know, currently poses the most significant challenge afflicting millions around the world. Combating climate change demands that we place ecological imperatives at the heart of our economic strategy. In this context, financing of mitigation and adaptation is vital to address this challenge. It becomes even more in a country like India, where millions of people are still living in dire poverty, and as the current paradigm of economic growth goes, usually high rates of economic development also consume large quantum of energy. Therefore, the quest of our development strategy to seek a low carbon emission trajectory of growth is a challenge which remains grossly under-addressed. This is the challenge on which there is a gross inadequacy of understanding. The international opinion would like us to believe that there is a trajectory of growth which can combine high rates of sustained economic development with low carbon emission. We do not know whether such a trajectory exists, and there is a growing opinion which would persuade us to delude ourselves into believing that we must compromise the carbon emission. The Minister of Environment, who was just here, has already informed us that India has just few days ago consented to be listed in the Copenhagen Accord. That accord has unfortunately not yet been fully debated, and its implications are not fully understood. He has also conveyed quite recently that we will endeavour to reduce the emission intensity from 20 to 25% by next decade. Therefore, seeking the creation of a non-lapsable corpus to create an environment mitigation and adaptation fund, because conventional means of financing are inadequate and will remain inadequate. I have been prompted by 6 main considerations. But first, the complex issue and the context in which the burden of mitigation and adaptation has been cast on us. We are already committed to the fact that we need to moderate the extent to which global environment warmings is taking place. As China and India move forward on reducing air pollution in the name of public health and quality of life, we can expect to see more of such pent-up warming. Europe is already seeing this after successful air pollution reduction. Suddenly, Europe has been a spurt in global warming. The science also suggests a long lag in the effects of these overall rise in general temperature on things like local temperature variability, rainfall and seasons. In fact, climate change can be much worse than conventional expectations. Most of the uncertainty about the impact of greenhouse gases on climate change is due to uncertainty about the climate parameter or the effects of a doubling of atmospheric concentrations of greenhouse gases on the mean temperature. The distribution of this uncertainty about climate sensitivity means that there is a significant possibility of the outcomes to be far worse than expected. This is due to a number of reasons that could accelerate global warming. But the climate sensitivity is likely to be much higher, possibly double, if the impact of long-term changes such as melting of ice, decline of forest cover, release of other greenhouse gases due to ocean warming, etc. are taken into account. Some well-known scientists even argue that carbon emission would actually need to be reduced to maintain current environmental conditions. Sir, the impact on India is very serious. I would like to broadly concentrate on 4 kinds of impact as far as India is concerned. Each one of them has deeper impacts. The first and foremost is the impact on water supply, on reduction of water supply, on the massive reallocation due to changes in monsoon patterns. Changing monsoon patterns will affect in a dramatic way the location or habitat, our entire civilization pattern with which our entire ethos have grown. The famous civilization patterns has been based entirely on predictability of rainfall and the predictability in which the cyclone of rainfall comes. Sir, there could be the fundamental question. Further, the rising sea levels affect coastal areas and even newly built infrastructure are as well becoming drivers of refugees in India. This house would recall a rather animated debate only 3 days ago on some questionable figures that were given about internal mitigation. Sir, connected with this is the shifting pattern of agriculture. In global warming, as Professor Swaminathan, an eminent colleague of ours in this house, has pointed out in a very recent paper, even a small incremental change of less than 0.5% has led to a 30% decline in productivity of crops. So, the weather and seasonal effects are deeply affecting agriculture. Therefore, there is a need for financial restructuring to accelerate availability of funds. This proposal divides the challenge into policy problems that we have seen before and for which we have little experience. The 3 key policy problems are financial structuring to accelerate availability of funds at minimal borrowing costs. The second is altering habits and incentives of many contributors to a common problem in a free market democratic economy. The third is accelerating innovations. Sir, also the funds so generated need to be protected for enabling borrowing against these revenue streams. Lastly, sir, I sincerely thank you for giving me time. दोस्तों इसी के साथ ये डिक्टेशन फिनिश होती है। उम्मीद पूरी है कि आप लोगों ने इसे बहुत अच्छे से किया होगा। मेहनत लगातार करते रहिए आप। बहुत दिनों बाद मैंने आपको प्रीवियस ईयर की डिक्टेशन ये प्रोवाइड की है। खास बात ये है कि मैटर आप ध्यान दीजिए, बहुत ही अच्छा है। लाइन जो सेंटेंसेस हैं उतने भी ज़्यादा बड़े नहीं हैं और वर्ड्स अच्छे अच्छे इसमें आए हैं जो कि आपको एग्जाम में बहुत हेल्प करेंगे। आप मेहनत करते रहिए। आपसे मुलाकात करूंगा मैं अब अगली क्लास में अगली ट्रांसक्रिप्शन के साथ। तब तक के लिए बाय बाय, टेक केयर।